Hello, everybody. Hey, it's always weird when I do this without Kevin because Kevin is the one who just jumps in here like a barrel of energy and exhorts me to action. However, today on this episode of Black Man Beyond, I do not have Kevin once again. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it this. He is as he's prone to do, off in the world doing Kev shit, which means that it falls to me to hold it down for the good folks in Pound Town and do another episode of Black Man Beyond. I'm fairly excited about this episode for a couple of different reasons. The not the least of which is that we get to talk about a bunch of new trailers. We get to talk about the Guardians 3 trailer, the Fast X trailer, and the little Renny Guy Fast trailer. We get to talk about Last of Us, two episodes 4 and 5. Last time we were here with Tiffany Smith, we talked about the heartbreak of episode 3. And then we'll get into more heartbreak because it seems like that's what this show is all about. And I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast that when I was a wee lad in high school and junior high in Long Island, New York, a town called Baldwin. That's where I grew up. I was born in the Bronx, grew up in Baldwin. I was your average standard misfit who never quite, the Legos never matched in the right holes, and so I skittered through a bunch of social circles. I played on the football team. I was in the drama squad. I, loved comic books. I played Dungeons and Dragons. Like I played basketball in the summers. Like I was that weird polyglot kind of kid. And consequently, my musical tastes in like the mid '80s were a little bit all over the place. There was jazz and Motown from my parents, and there was sort of the pop of the day. Rap was beginning to feel itself in a large way. Run DMC and LL Cool J, and on the heels of like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and all of that stuff. And music for me, it never really quite fit all of the things that I was. And so there were a couple of artists over the course of that development period when the clay was still wet, when the soil was still fertile, who sort of unlocked for me the me that I could be in the world, the things that I could love in the world, and not have to apologize to anybody for loving it. Prince, I think, was the first one who kind of opened the door for me in that way, that you could be black and you could play guitar and you could play synths and you could rock and you could be flowery and you could be in touch with every element of your sexuality, that you could be sort of like a black David Bowie, even though David Bowie was his own weird alien self. And the other one, and we'll hit this very hard towards the end of the podcast, was De La Soul, which sort of opened up for me a rap that did not have to be about machismo. It did not have to be about braggadocio. It did not have to be about chains and boom boxes and all of that stuff. It could be about whatever the hell you wanted it to be about. And it could still bang as hard as fuck. And then sort of the third element of that, the third leg of that table, the third wall of that pyramid, for me was Living Color. Like Living Color got to be the hardest version of that. Living Color got to fucking go hard, but go hard in the way that, Zeppelin went hard, go hard in the way that fucking Megadeth went hard, go hard in the way that like rock and metal and all of that shit can go hard, but also be black as fuck and unapologetically so, and be the first time I got to see that in the world. There were no music videos of black rock bands before I saw Cult of Personality on MTV. It just didn't happen. And it was this sort of tectonic shift in who I was going to be. And then I could like everything. I could like all of it. And all of it could then, in turn, be available to me. And I didn't have to feel weird for it. I didn't have to feel outcast because of it. And so I just incorporated it. And it helped to calibrate the sort of compass of my life in who I was going to be and how I was going to conduct myself. And it's always been there. Like those three pillars of that part of pop culture still remain inviolate to me. They are the things that made me who I am and allowed me to like the things that I like and to fall in love with things that I ordinarily wouldn't have. And so one of the weird side effects of getting to do a podcast like this is occasionally, and my life is weird in any number of ways, but you do get to collide in the most wonderful ways with your heroes. And I have to date never really been let down by them. Maybe I don't have enough heroes, so maybe my the sample set isn't big enough for me to get completely heartbroken by it. But every now and again, you get to have an interaction with somebody who meant something to you, an incredible amount to you as a kid, and then discover that in the oddest of fucking ways that you have meant something to them as well. And so it is with like humility and honor and awe and joy that I get to welcome Corey Glover to co-host this episode of Black Man Beyond with me.
Hello.
Hey, man.
How's it going, dude?
How are you?
What's happening? I'm awake. We got it there. We finally got there. You called me a couple times. I was like, nope, can't do it. No, don't want to do it. Can't do it. But I'm here now. And of course, this morning I had oral surgery. I had 2 teeth yanked out of my face.
Oh,
so
shit.
Don't mind me. Don't mind me. I'm going to be loud because my face hurts.
Well, thank you for enduring oral agony to come and hang out with me.
No problem. This is much better than having somebody drilling into my face.
That is exactly the kind of A and B that I like to exist in. Right. How you doing? You're better than drilling me in the face.
Right.
Then I win.
You win. Absolutely.
But yes, thank you very much. I know you were on tour last week. You were on the road.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing a lot of running around. I was out with 2/4 of Soul Asylum doing this acoustic thing where I was doing some of my solo work, and I'm always contractually obligated to play a Living Color song no matter where I go. It doesn't matter. But so doing that, and before that I was on this cruise called Shiprock. Shout out to them. And I was on a boat for like 5-6 days. So, and every time you called, I was like, nope, not here. Nope, not home. Nope, not home. Shitty Wi-Fi everywhere I go. Nope, can't do it.
Well, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we got it together. And I'm going to do my best to not Chris Farley my way through this. Remember that time you were on tour? The Stones, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe but tell me.
Yeah, go on. I'll tell a few stories. Go on. Ask.
Listen, man. If whenever you need to drop me a nugget, I will gladly take it. Right. But where did your nerd come in? What's your way in?
It was, I am the youngest child, and my brother and sister are over 10 years 10 years older than I am. So I basically grew up around adults. But I loved weird shit. Comic books aren't weird shit, but I was like into falconry. In Brooklyn.
Wow.
In Brooklyn.
Were those just rats? You tied wings to?
Tied wings to pigeons. Get a glove for pigeons. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Pigeonry.
Right. I was into archery. I read a book somewhere about archery, and I just lost my mind and thought I was going to be like the Green Arrow, just running up across the rooftops with a bow and arrow. It was weird. But I was always, my family was always somewhat artistically inclined. My sister was an actress and my brother was a singer. So somehow I was going to do one of both of those things at some point in time in my life. And because I was dealing with older people, my conversations to people my age were never right. They were like, what are you talking about? Why do you sound like that? Why do you talk that way? And I got the obligatory, sound black, constantly, and what's your deal, and all that stuff, until I found a few people that I knew were just like me. Like, and I found the variations of them. Like I found, LARPers. Like I had a friend that was a LARPer, didn't tell anybody, didn't tell a soul that he was a LARPer until I saw him in the park. I was like, John, what are you doing here? Because we talked about comic books, and then it was like I found out he was like he's in his cardboard armor running around, and like, wow. And I had lots of friends that were musicians, that were like players, and that, when I was younger, they were never around to hang out with because it was hard taking lessons. But then when we got to be teenagers, they got into bands, and for myself, I got into choirs. Like I got into church choirs, and I got into All City High School chorus, and then I had a friend that I was in a choir, one of the church choirs I was in, who turned me on to Bad Brains, and I lost it. And he turned me on to Bad Brains and Fishbone. I was like, that's it. I got it. That's me. I got it. There I am. And I found myself. I really, really found myself in that. And I went to a hardcore matinee when I was like 18 or 19 and was transfixed to watch Bad Brains in action. And I have not looked back ever since. So I come to my geekdom pretty honestly.
I think everybody does. I don't at all want to gatekeep. I don't all want to. I do. I remember the refrain when I was like 20 years old of like, where are all the ladies at? Why are there no ladies here? And like, I don't understand the social forces that might have driven some of those women underground. I bet you they looked a lot like comic book store owners who, had tests to allow people to walk in.
Right.
Gatekeeping was real. But I think that everybody who loves it because they love it. Like, you wouldn't choose it if you could, and definitely not if you're in your 50s. Like it was not easy to be a nerd back in the 80s.
No. There was a lot of running involved in that. I had to run a lot. A lot of running. Like, because comic book shops were in some weird ass neighborhoods that I was not allowed to be in after a certain time. So I had to run. Or I remember, like, in my 20s, there was a club in Brooklyn called L'Amour's. And the way you got to L'Amour's as a Black person is you took the D train to a certain stop and you ran to the club because the neighborhood was a gauntlet, so you ran and hid until you got to the club. You got into the club, and then you did just stretching for after the gig, and it's like, okay, I'm going back to the train station now. So you had to run back to the train station. So yeah, it was not easy in like the 80s to be in that, to want to go to a hardcore matinee or even go to see even if you wanted to go see something that was not on the beaten track. Like as I said, I'm from Brooklyn, and everything that you listened to was gatekept. They definitely kept that. And if you said something outside of that, there was work. You just got it. Like that, I could talk about, a Kiss record in the same way that I could talk about, a Keith Sweat record drove people crazy.
They don't know what to do with you.
Right. I like them both. I do.
Yeah. And also, like, Kiss was a good, like, if you're a nerd, Kiss speaks to you. Like, even if you don't, even before you get to the music, which is not fucking bad. Like I swung around to Kiss, like listening to it later on, but I was all about the theatricality. I was all about the makeup. I was all about the demon and the blood and the tongue and the boots. Like all of it spoke to an 8-year-old.
And the kitty cat. I didn't understand that, but it didn't have to. Why are you a cat? And drummer's cat drummer? Okay,
Yeah,
got it. Let's go.
yeah. I mean, for somebody who liked Josie and the Pussycats, Kiss was right in line. They were an anime
Exactly.
band waiting to happen.
Right.
And so now,
That,
how old were you when Living Color when you joined, when you and Vernon and Muzz and the gang?
I was maybe 22, 23 years old. Like I got into the band, and this is the story I tell everybody is I got into the band because I sang Happy Birthday. And how that went was I was at somebody's party and I was talking to some people and they wheeled out a cake and the person whose birthday it was said, "Nope, nobody's singing Happy Birthday. That guy is." And it was like, I'm going to give you a really rough reference, but it was like that girl. So it was and I was like, huh? What? Okay. So I sang Happy Birthday. And Vern happened to be there with his sister. And we struck up a conversation. We exchanged phone numbers. And it turns out that he lived like 6 or 7 blocks away from me. And we both lived in Crown Heights. And he lived on Empire Boulevard. I lived on Brooklyn Avenue. So he invited me over one day and played me some of this music. And this is the first time I heard songs like I Want to Know and Funny Vibe. And he was like, "Need a singer for this band. I've been singing and I'm really not doing a really good job. So we need a full-fledged singer to do this kind of thing." It's like, all right, I'm down. I'm so down. I'm so down. And I auditioned for it. And he said, "Don't worry, I'll call you in a couple of weeks and let you know whether you got it or not. And either way, one way or the other, I'll let you know." Okay, so a week went by, and 3 weeks went by, and a month went by, and 2 months went by. And I got a phone call from Vernon saying, "Our singer can't do the gig. Can you do it?" And that is the nature of my relationship with Vernon Reed. um, so yeah, it was a gig in CBGB's. I went down, we rehearsed, and we did the gig, and the guy never came. The real lead singer never came back. So I've been stuck with this job since then.
So it is easy for me to imagine, only because, as a person who has like read a bunch of music coverage, who's watched a bunch of documentaries and shit, to imagine what 22, 23, 24 years old is like. Suddenly you're on stages, suddenly you're on arenas, suddenly you're traveling the world. What the fuck, man?
Your guess is as good as mine. How what happened? That shit was. I have no fucking idea what happened. All of a sudden, we went. This is the really weird thing. We went from traveling in vans, like we were in, a Econoline church vans, driving up and down the East Coast and driving west, and driving around, to being on tour buses and playing in stadiums. We played in places that are big as their living room. Up until the point, the Stones called and said, "You want to do this?" Like, hell yeah. And we were on stages that you could fit all of the places we played around the country in one stadium. So we went from feast to famine really, really quickly. And while this was all going on, our relationship to MTV had drastically changed. Like we had a hard time with the first single, and they were like, MTV was not particularly interested. They played it late at night. It was a glorified radio station at the time, and they just were not feeling us really.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, we were telling them, put out Cult of Personality. It'll be a really good song. I think it'll work. We think it'll work. And lo and behold, it did. But there was some behind the scenes politicking going on that we had no idea until after the fact, because we were on the same label as Michael Jackson.
Ah.
And the head of promotion, sort of hinted to the program director at MTV, is like, it'd be a shame if Michael Jackson didn't get put on MTV this week, if Living Color doesn't get put on. So,
Funny how that
so
happens.
yeah, you figure that out, okay? See you later. Bye. And I hung up.
Oh, the nerd in me now wants to know what country that you visited is the best place to be a nerd.
Best place to be a nerd.
Like, is it Japan? I feel like Japan is always at the top of that
Japan,
list. 'Cause
Japan is on top of that list because you can get anything out of a vending machine in Japan. Wow. Anything, anything. I need a ball peen hammer right there.
I got to go beat up a hallway full of people. I need a ball
Right.
peen.
Right. It's like they're like their music places. There was a store. Those last time I was there that you could go and say, I want this record, I want that record, I want this record, I want that record, and they will make you an MP3 that you can then download at some point in a mix the way you want to hear it. Most amazing shit I ever saw in my life.
Wow.
So you can get your own mixtapes made in some of these places, and like to go get gadgets. And I was a freak. I am still a freak for gadgets. Like anything you can think of, a left-handed nose clipper, whatever you're looking for, it's there. It's there, and probably in a vending machine. And yeah, Japan is number one on that list. But you go to places, strangely enough, like London, you'll find it. It's really expensive, but it's in London.
Mm.
Buenos Aires, Argentina. Don't know why, but I have no. But you can find all kinds of geek shit in Buenos Aires.
Really?
I don't know why. I really don't understand why.
They got nerds.
But they got nerds. They got tons of nerds. They obviously have a shit ton of nerds in Argentina. Where else can you find? Toronto.
Mm.
Why am I blanking on the name? It's also in Canada. Vancouver.
Montreal. Alberta.
Montreal, not so much. Alberta, not so much. But Vancouver and Toronto are like geek headquarters, West Coast and East Coast, evidently.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't surprise me if like that's a weird Hollywood byproduct, right? Like everybody who's going up north from here to go shoot their show for like 5 months. Like, listen, I need a store. I need my shit. I need my fix. Like, you got to open up a good fucking role playing spot. I need my figurines. I got my minifigs. I got to paint.
You have? Is there a D&D card store anywhere around? I need my mages card. I need new mages cards. All kinds of shit. Yeah, Toronto, definitely you can do that. Yeah, Canada in general is sort of like geeky world. Is geek world. It's Canada, but you can be geek on so many different levels. Like you can be a hockey geek and make no sense whatsoever. Like that makes no sense to me. I never understood hockey. I never hockey. No offense to anybody who likes hockey, but hockey is just a lot.
Hockey's a lot. I never dug it. I grew up on again. If you're on Long Island, if you're in the city, then you got like the Islanders and the Rangers to deal with, and if you're close enough to Jersey, the Jersey Devils. Like you're always on a train with a bunch of people coming out of Penn Station. I love
the jerseys. The jerseys were really cool, and there was a point in time when hockey jerseys were like the fashion thing, and I wore a bunch of them on teams I didn't know. And then I found out like Mario Lemieux was like a fan of Living Color, and he gave me a fucking jersey. I was like, I still don't like this sport.
I don't like it either, but in my dotage, I have learned that the hockey that people watch today is in great part because of the escaped enslaved people who, when they went north, went to fucking Canada. And there was a place called Africtown that, they
Mm,
had a hockey league that
yes,
wouldn't
they
let the black
did.
people play. And so the black people started their own league. It was like a church league. And they're the ones who invented slap shots. And the black
Right.
people are the ones who invented checking. Like all
Did
of
you
the
read
ways
that book?
this.
Did you read that book, Black on Ice?
No, I never did.
There's a book. As a friend of mine, Michael Williams, who used to work for Much Music in Canada, hit me to this book called Black on Ice, and I don't have it near me, but it's about that story of how modern day hockey owes its a great deal to escaped slaves from south of the border that came up and started making this game a little more interesting. Icing, all of it. There's a bunch of stuff that yeah, it still doesn't make me want to go out and play it though. I
No,
don't
not at
care
all.
how I don't
But
care how black it is.
the,
Right on. Got my fist in the air. You go for it. Do what you want to do. I'm not doing it.
this has been your Black History moment with Marc and Corey,
Ah,
where we explain to you that the thing that you love that you think was super white is actually crazy black.
very.
Also, meet most of American culture. But before we digress too deeply into, I don't know, say football, definitely basketball. But were you growing up? Were you a Marvel kid or a DC kid?
I started out as a Marvel guy because I one day, I don't know how this happened. There was a house being rebuilt, and I don't know. I walked through this house, and I found these old, like underneath some floorboard somewhere, somebody had stashed a bunch of Superman annuals from 1956. And I was transfixed by these books, and I was reading them. And I wasn't old enough to understand what I had in my hands,
Mm.
really. And I traded them for Marvel books, which looked a lot better. So so I was then hooked on Marvel books because they're like, wow, this the industry has gone leaps and bounds since 1957, obviously. But
Yeah.
like somebody gave me like an Iron Man from like 76. I don't know who was doing those books, but the attention to detail and all that stuff was just incredible to me. It was like television in a book, and I've been hooked on Marvel ever since.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially as a New York kid, there was always something about Marvel that like you could go to Greenwich Village and find the Sanctum Sanctorum. You could
Mm-hmm.
you could maybe go and find the Baxter Building or Stark Tower. Like that shit was real. The Daily Bugle
But
was in the Flatiron Building. Like you could
right,
go.
right. I saw like I've been to Forest Hills, Queens, and I know Spider Man's around there somewhere. You know,
Whereas like
or
Metropolis is like it's kind of New York and Gotham is also kind of New York, but
right,
it's it's not the real, but
right, right. And, when you saw like I got into Luke Cage, and it's like, okay, that's not Lenox Avenue, but it's close enough. I get it. I get what you're trying to do. It's not close, but you're in
right.
Harlem at least. At least you're in Harlem, and I know where Harlem is.
Right. It was the Harlem that had never been visited by many of the artists who were drawing Harlem.
Exactly.
Like
Right.
I know it's up
Exactly.
there, and I got a vibe. I've seen pictures.
Yeah, I don't go past 96th Street, but yeah, it's over there somewhere.
Yeah, 125th. That's I don't know if the train goes that high.
Right. What is
uh,
what was that movie that was it Jim Jarmusch? It was Brother from Another Planet.
oh yeah,
The
John
guy said,
Sayles.
yeah, he says, you want to see all the white people disappear? Next stop, 125th Street. And everybody gets off, all the white folks get off the train.
All right, yeah. See, I asked you that question because I was curious,
Mm,
and I had an idea. I had an inkling, giving the New York of it all. I feel like
right,
all New Yorkers were Marvel Comics fans,
right.
to a certain degree. At least it was their first exposure. But that will dictate the order in which we talk about the trailers that dropped during the Super Bowl. Are you
Listen,
a sports ball person? Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did not. I did not watch the Super Bowl, but I was, and neither did my children.
Don't
we,
care.
I, we're all geeks, and it was like we were driving around, and it was like, wow, there's nobody on the road today. Wonder. Oh yeah, that thing is on. Right.
We should go to some museums or something. There are no lines
Right.
to nowhere.
The roads are free. We could speed everywhere. The cops are around. Let's go. So,
Yeah, because there were three trailers that dropped, three big ones. I'm not going to
mhm,
count the little car commercial that the Transformers Rise of the Beast trailer was.
right.
But we had the Flash, the first real look at the Flash. We
Hmm.
had the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the first full trailer for that.
Right.
And then we had maybe the biggest superhero movie of them all, Fast X, which
Right. Right.
everybody in those movies are fucking mutants at this point.
Obviously, because they can't die.
Can't die, physics don't apply to them. Maybe decades of inhaling NOS has changed their genetic structure, and they're all just mutants now.
Right. Well, Vin looks a little different. Okay, here's the thing. I knew Vin Diesel when he was the bouncer at this club in New York called Area.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't remember me, but I remember him because that voice was very distinct even then. And one time I was trying to get into the club with a friend of mine. It was my manager at the time, and he was like, and I was like, I'm on the list. It's like, no, your name is not on the list. It's like, look again, it's not on the list. And my friend Guy was like, tell him where you're from, Corey, because this is getting tiresome. It's like, hi, I'm from the band Living Color. And Vin looked up and like looked me in the eye. It's like, and then get that look of shock, and he's like, come on in, come on, go, 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 go. But yeah, that was so to watch the rise of Vin Diesel has been a very interesting thing.
I can imagine. You were, windows to wonder, like,
Right.
huh, guy. All right.
Right. Good for you.
Go on with your bad self.
Right.
All right. So then let's talk about Fast and the Furious Volume 10.
Okay.
Are you a fast person? Is that your jam?
It is not because it just it's just like a lot. There's a lot of cliches and cars, and like I was never that cool. I always wanted to be that cool. I wanted a fast car. I never had a fast car. I always had a very sensible used car that I always bought, and I could never get into a fast car. Vernon bought like a Mustang one time. It was like, you're gonna kill yourself because you can't drive, Vernon. You're gonna die in that car. You need to get rid of it.
You're a New York City kid.
You didn't learn to drive until you were in your 20s. You don't need that car. You were in your 30s. I'm sorry. You were in your 30s when you learned how to drive. You don't need that car.
I am a fast person, in every sort of way, but I've never seen a film series warp itself in so many different ways. Like, it started as like a Point Break ripoff, right? Like,
Right.
pretty blonde kid goes undercover amongst the bad guys doing bad shit, masquerading in the street racing culture, and it's just a cops and robbers movie. Like, that's it.
Right.
Undercover, am I going to get blown? Am I not? I fell in love with this guy's sister. I really like him, but oh no, we got to race once. And like, that's it. And by like the 9th movie, they're going to space. I've never seen a movie series do this. I've seen 25 Bond movies. I've seen 31 Marvel movies. They always began, we're going to space. Like, that's cool. Like, fucking Tony Stark hits the upper atmosphere in Iron Man 1. Like, we know what that is. But this fucking musclehead mechanic is suddenly like piloting rocket ships and shooting submarines and yanking helicopters out of the sky.
Yeah, it's so fantastic, and I think the only movie that I actually saw was Tokyo Drift. I think I saw it in its entirety, and I didn't fall asleep on.
Strong.
And I was like, this doesn't make any sense either. I understand that this is based on something that's going on another franchise, but this makes no sense. They're going to fall off these cliffs. Someone's going to die. Someone's going to die, and nobody dies. Cars turn over 6, 7, 8, 10 times. Nobody dies.
No, it's a G.I. Joe cartoon where it's just like you shoot the plane and then suddenly everyone's got a parachute that pops out of it. He's fine. Right. He's fine. Don't worry about it. We can't kill anybody on Channel 11 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Right.
So. Yeah, like I don't know what it is. I think I love the inherent daffiness of it. And I love how they double down on it. They're never afraid to be as dumb as it is. And like, all right, sure. What are we doing now? Okay, space, why not? Dinosaurs? Yeah, Fast 11, sure. Time travel? Hope so.
Yeah, I've been told that there's some time travel in one of these other episodes, one of these other movies of Fast and the Furious. And I don't understand how that happens. Do they go faster than the speed of light and go backwards or something? What happened?
I mean, we'll get to the Flash in a bit, but
we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm saying
the Speed Force.
Did that happen? Did time travel happen in one of the Fast and Furious movies?
It has not yet. I mean, there's been flashbacks to shit, but they've never like, we got to go #family and save him from the past. I am Groot.
Right.
No, they haven't done it yet. But again, everything is possible. Like there's like if at one point, like in one of these movies, they pull the fucking tarp off of the car that he's supposed to race in, and it's the DeLorean, like from Back to the Future. Like, and there's fucking Doc Brown's like, I got it for you, Finn. You gotta go back to save tomorrow.
Oh my God.
Nothing is off the table.
Nothing is off the table, huh?
Nope. Wow. I mean, it better not be at this point. They went to fucking space, man. They went to space. All of that said, I'm going to see this movie. I'm going to see it like opening day because I'm that cat.
Of course you are.
Of course I am. It seems to be like the greatest hits of them. Like everybody who has ever been in one of these movies, except for Dwayne Johnson, seems to be back for this one.
Now, my understanding is that this is a two-parter.
Yes.
And
Fast X 2.
Right. Fast X2. It sounds like some heartburn medicine. I don't understand what this is. It's like, so everybody is going to be in the first one. Mm-hmm. And the rumor mill is that nobody really dies, of course, because nobody dies. But the second one, Fast X2, Electric Boogaloo, will just have Dwayne Johnson in it.
Just him.
Yeah.
It's the Fast X. We get everybody he wanted. Fast X2. One of these does not play well with others.
Right. Right. So we're gonna find him under some rubble. He's gonna break that. Like, what, he break his arm in one of them, and then he just,
his daddy's got to go to work, and he just snaps it out of a splint. Right. There are no laws. There are no rules.
There's no rules. None.
I sort of appreciate it for that. It looks big. It looks as dumb as humanly possible. But it's fucking catnip to me. So I'm gonna be there. Let's talk about let's keep Vin in the mix and talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Right.
Are you a Guardians dude?
I am. And I read the books back in the day, and it was like that Steve Ditko did a bunch of those books, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ditko and Kirby, I think, touched a lot of that era of early Marvel. And I think it's one of the Image founders did it also.
Not Todd.
No, I was thinking Joe. Why am I blanking on his name? But yeah. It was
That was an acid trip. Those books were just the backgrounds. I don't know how you got to do those backgrounds and keep a story in your head. Because you look at the story, you look at the backgrounds, you go, you're just mesmerized by it all. And then, and then there's this story involved, and Ego, the living planet, says something, speaks. It's a planet, it speaks. Yeah. I don't get it.
Jim Valentino, I think, was
Right.
was a guy who was in on Guardians really early.
Right.
Um, yeah, no, it was all like, hey, we all met drugs in the '70s, and then we made comic books.
Right. It's like, remember that acid trip? Well, here it is.
Yep. Welcome to Dormammu. Why? Because
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 just because.
so many mushrooms. Um, yeah, I was never a big Guardians fan in the comics. It just didn't, I was too much in the X-Men and Spider-Man,
Mm,
and I never swung the Guardians way. But I very much loved the first Guardians movie. Like I
I
think
did.
that, the tone is just right on point. It's emotional. You understand why, Peter Quill is the way he is. You
Mm,
understand the hole that's in his heart and how he fills it with this ragtag band of morons and assholes, and
right.
how and each of them needs the other in order to find a way to be complete. And it's fun. I think that Marvel movies have always been fun-ish, but there's a sense of like there was a heaviness to the MCU by the time that Guardians had come around.
Yeah, and it was definitely necessary. It was a good palate cleanser
Yeah.
from all the destruction. And the first one at least was before Ragnarok, I think, before they
Mm-hmm.
decided it needs that this needs to lighten up. And you got some real sort of levity out of just just fuck ups, just
Yeah.
the biggest fuck ups in the world, and how they fell up, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it is also the story of the least qualified white dude in the universe.
Oh, it
Um,
is an impossible white man story. Most of them are.
most of them are. But yeah, like on the heels of like Winter Soldier, on the heels of like, I think it comes out after Ultron.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, that was the weight of the world. It's all very fucking heavy, and this is
Right.
just fucking rock music, and we're bouncing, and we're
Right.
cracking jokes, and I very much dug the first one.
It's
The
like
second one,
it was the Van Wilder of the MCU. Yeah, that's what it was.
oh, deep cut, deep cut. Minus the Ryan Reynolds of it all, but
Right.
you had your other Ryan Reynolds,
Yeah, the
Chris
right.
Pratt. The second one I didn't love quite as much. Like the bounce was still there, but the father son story didn't quite gel for
Mm-mm.
me in the way that I'd hoped it would. And I think there's something always magnetic about the finale of a story, right? The ending of a thing,
Hmm.
like what you choose to be the last song on your album.
Right.
What it says about the other stuff that had come before. And so it looks like it's still got a sense of humor. It looks like it's still got that sort of love between the characters, even though they've got like the new Gamora in there who has no care whatsoever about Peter Quill, and like that's cool
Right.
tension. um but it looks like it's in the hands of like this is James Gunn's probably his last Marvel movie. It's his last Guardians movie. This is the
Right.
last time he's going to play with these characters. And so there's a feeling that like he took it as seriously as you can take a jokey romp through space.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of sight gags that you can definitely deal with, but and particularly in that trailer when the whole thing with the high evolutionary and the rocket is
Mm-hmm.
going to get really dark and really deep and very
Yeah.
serious very quickly, and you're going to go, it's you're gonna feel like you felt when you saw the Eternals, like no amount of jokes was saving that thing, you
No,
know.
no. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb. Maybe I'm not by myself on this limb. I'm not sure. But I do think that Rocket is some of the best work Bradley Cooper's ever done.
I agree. I
Like
agree.
so much fucking pathos, so much humor, so much gravitas. Like I could watch him do that character all day
Right.
long.
Mm, I
All day
agree.
long.
I think that without have he doesn't have his handsomeness to hide behind in that with that character.
No.
You know, he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be. He's not a pretty boy. He's anything but a pretty boy, and all the ugliness that he can muster and kid is coming out of that character.
Yeah, all the ugliness that a beautiful person who's never been ugly can bring to bear.
Right, right, exactly.
Why do they call it acting? I'm pretending to be ugly on the inside.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm here for it. It's just May. Like this year is barreling along, and
I
like
know.
it's fucking like this weekend is Ant-Man Quantumania. In like 2 months we get this. Another month after that we get the Marvels. Like
Right.
they're spoiling us rotten. And like as much as I do feel occasionally, can you guys slow it down a little bit? Like it's hard for me to be nostalgic for a thing I get all the time.
Right.
Um,
I don't know what that scheduling is about. Like I could have waited another year for Black Panther. I
mm,
could have waited. Literally, I could have waited another year. I wasn't chomping at the bit, and and quite honestly, it would have given you more time to really flesh out that story and put
mm.
all the pieces in it that you needed. If you needed another year, if you wanted to put it out in 2023 and push everything else back, it'd have been great. It'd have been fine, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and also like the Black Panther movies have always been a little bit siloed, in that there are not a ton of tendrils that affect the rest of the MCU per se.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you establish the Black Panther, once you establish Wakanda, it is not as if, I mean, and yes, 100%, Namor is going to be a player in the MCU going forward, but it doesn't sound like he's in Quantumania. Doesn't sound like he's going
Mm-mm.
to be in the Marvels. Like you
Right.
could have, to your point, like given it a little bit more space to breathe, because I know they were all operating from a place of pain, and it's a movie that
Exactly.
shows it.
And it shows it. I think, and with that, they could have pushed everything else back, and made us want it more. The
Mm.
fact that Ant-Man is coming, and that's sort of like the main MCU storyline, and Kang and all that stuff is coming. I get it, but you could have hinted your way into that story. You could have after credit scene your way into that story and waited another year or waited another 6 months, and everybody would be like, what the fuck is happening? And then you hit them with it. Because I don't know, like kids told me that it's not getting really good. It didn't get a really good Rotten Tomato score.
Mm.
So you could have made it a more anticipatory, and I think it might have got maybe getting a better score. I think we're just getting piled on with Marvel movies. With even with the DCU, it's not the DCEU, it's the DCU
Mhm.
stuff. We're getting piled on with that as well, because we're getting the Flash, and then we're getting
Aquaman
um Aquaman, and there's something else out, and Blue
and Blue
Beetle.
Beetle.
Right.
Yeah, like that's
Three.
and then well, first it's fucking Shazam, then the
Right.
Flash, then Aquaman, and then Blue Beetle, all within like 18 months.
Right. And it's too much. That's a clear shot way of burning us out on superhero movies. Not me per se,
Mm-hmm.
but your regular punter out there is going to go, yeah, another one. And they don't know the difference between Marvel and DC. And as it stands now, there are 7 superhero movies coming out in this next 9 months. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a whole
Yeah, it's a
lot.
lot. It's a lot, especially because, and people compare it to like Westerns, right? Like
Right.
that's all they fucking made in the 50s and the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Every movie was a Western, but they all weren't like the same Western. They all
Right.
weren't telling the same story. A big
Right.
collective, like, well, what's John Wayne going to do this week's story? Oh, Lee Van Cleef. How's he going to
Right.
touch these 5 different movies?
Right.
You
What is
know,
John Ford gonna put on screen now?
yeah, totally.
You
What's
know?
the Clint Eastwood connected universe, which
Right.
they did, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it didn't have the same pressure. It didn't have the same regularity. Like, hey, went to
Right.
fucking Italy, shot a bunch of westerns as the man with no name.
Right.
Could they connect? If you want them to, do they have to? Not necessarily.
Mm-mm.
Not necessarily. And speaking of the last trailer we got from the Super Bowl drop was The Flash, was the oft debated, occasionally reviled. Um,
I know you
like
feel a certain kind of way about this movie, and because of what's his name,
I
but
feel, yeah, it's a shame, really, because this movie looks great.
it's really changed my mind because I was, you had convinced me that I should not see this fucking movie because assholes are being assholes and just leave it alone. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna see it because Mark said no, no. So
I appreciate you implying that I have any power whatsoever over anything.
right, and then I saw the trailer. I was like, fuck, Mark, I'm gonna go see this. You know,
Like all reports had been from everybody who has seen it, for everybody who's close to it, is this movie's great. We
right?
we have faith in this movie, says Warner Brothers. We have faith in these characters. We have faith in this director. I still think the person they have at the center of this movie kidnapped children, you guys. Like, it is not an easy thing to overlook, thanks to a couple of press releases and I'm working on my mental health. There
Right.
were legit crimes committed by the star of this film.
True.
And so I'm curious to see, if there is any repercussions for that, if there's any actual, charges filed or trial set or whatever. But that said, I can kind of look. Hey, we all who have been alive for any amount of time have discovered that people who we loved in movies that we love are awful fucking people.
A certain gelatinous uh, pudding salesman we all knew and love was one of the most prolific rapists in the world. How about that?
Yeah, I mean he's a monster. I don't imagine that Leonard Part 7 is coming anytime soon.
No.
His monstrosity. So like, yeah, I how one feels about the Flash and whether or not they want to support anything that has Ezra Miller's name on it is a personal decision for every person. All I can say is that movie looks fucking dope.
It does. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think going forward they're gonna stick with him, or are they gonna find a way to replace him, or find a way in story to get rid of the actor?
I mean, they are at the center of a multiversal story. And so, should one want to replace that person, it is 100% possible to do so. I don't know if it's a matter of the next Flash movie will have a different actor at the center. I don't know if it's a matter of we will sunset the Flash for a little bit until we figure out the rest of the DCU. And
Mm-hmm.
notice that in all of the movies that James Gunn announced, none of them were the Flash 2, even
Mm.
though they've seen it and they think it's great. Um, it's entirely possible that it's just we're going to let this cool for a while. This is going to do a long way towards kind of resetting and wiping a little bit of the stink off of the DCU. And
Right.
then maybe in 10 years, once Ezra has figured out their issues and once they've gotten the care and the help that they need, we can revisit returning them to the fore.
Right. 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 Right.
But yeah, like it is just it's hard to watch, but I also get it because you watch them in that trailer and oh no, they have something.
They do.
100%. There's
100%.
a bounce, there's an energy, and I get it.
And I think that part of what's happening off screen for him is the price of fame. Like he doesn't know what to do with himself. So he was, I really feel like because he's concentrating so much on the characters and the characters he's played because that Harry Potter movie, not Harry Potter, it wasn't Harry Potter, but in the Potter universe, whatever that movie was, Fantastic Beasts.
Right.
That character was the only real bright spot in that movie to me. Because of his performance, because of his acting and his pathos and his anger. Like he's living his life on screen. I don't know what he's doing off screen, but well, we kind of do know what he's doing off screen. but you could see that he's putting all of whatever it is that's going on with him on screen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it is a difficult problem, I think, for a studio to deal with. It's difficult sort of moral issue for the viewership to deal with.
Absolutely.
And it's the same. It's similar to the issue that I think people are having with to piggyback off of your comment, the Harry Potter video game, which
Right, right,
is,
right.
do I play a game based on a universe created by a woman who seems to not believe that trans people exist? Or at the
Exactly.
very least, that trans people have the rights that everybody else should have.
Right.
And like, if you want to play that game, play that game. Like, it is your choice to make as a person who can do what you want to do. But you've got to figure that part of the problem out for yourself.
And I think that part of because they did supposedly put a trans character into the game, but as that was the game developers, not J.K. Rowling. But it just seems a day late and a dollar short for anybody.
Yeah, so it is always the issue of, do you let a person redeem themselves? Do you allow for a redemption story? Do you allow for a person to get better than they happened to have been when they did this? Who gets to have grace?
Right.
Who gets to be able to work on themselves in the way that, as a society, we hope you would? Can they rehabilitate themselves? I'd like to hope so. I'd like to hope everybody can.
I do too. But there's also a forgiveness gap from the highest echelons to the lowest. There's like, once you're an asshole, you're always an asshole, and you're never going to not be an asshole, no matter what you do to rehabilitate your character in some way, because we don't believe your sincerity, that you're doing this just so that you can continue to stay in the public eye. And and we've factioned ourselves off in a real way to, like, I can't support her because she's a TERF, and I can't support him because he's harming children, and they can't find a middle ground for any of it. And we spend our days online doing that. And maybe it's a function of the internet to sort of compartmentalize your ideas about people, but something's got to give, in my opinion.
I mean, there has to be some path forward that allows that people change, because they do,
Right.
but they can only change because they want to change. You can't force you can't force a person to become something they're not. I bet you there are a lot of women who would say that about their husbands. Like, I married this person thinking they would change. I tried to change them. They didn't.
They did not.
And now, we're getting a divorce, or, vice versa. The change has to be internal and has to be genuine and sincere. And in that case, like, if a person does the work, then all right, it's like prison. You go to prison and you pay your debt to society and you come out a better person on the other side. That's what's supposed to happen.
That's what it was designed to be.
Right.
It was designed to rehabilitate somebody by taking them out of society so they can learn how to be a part of society. And we've cordoned people off and never to return again, no matter what they do and no matter how they were treated. And there's a subtlety to this. There's a nuance to this that we're not really getting in some cases.
Yeah, almost never, because nuance was the first thing to go when social media became the way we communicated and the way we got our information. Exactly. You can't get nuance in 140 characters. Not possible.
No.
All right. Listen, we are all going to see these movies because, of course, we are. We are nerds.
Of course we are. That's what we do.
That's what we do. We are going to talk about The Last of Us, the episodes 4 and 5 in just a second. But first, I'm going to pay some bills.
All right.
And Corey, you can 100% be an innocent bystander while I sell some smell goods.
Okay.
Yeah. This episode of Black Man Beyond, as many fat mans are before it, was brought to you by the good folks at Native. When it comes to Valentine's Day, hey, we're all about the candy. We're all about fucking Reese's peanut butter cups. We're all about M&Ms, the ones with the peanuts in them. We're all about Twixes. We're all about the joy. And that's why I am loving Native's new limited edition candy shop collection. Like all Native products, they are thoughtfully formulated to keep me and you smelling and deliciously feeling and smelling deliciously fresh all day long. You know them for their aluminum-free deodorant. Native keeps their ingredients list bare naked with ingredients you understand, like coconut oil, shea butter, and baking soda. Checks a lot of boxes: 72-hour odor protection, naturally derived ingredients, and a smooth residue-free application. They also offer a variety of scents with new and limited edition scents being released all the time, like gummy bears, strawberry and vanilla taffy, sour berry belt. Well, I said it right this time. When you use Native, I stumbled on sour berry. Say, almost did it again. Sour berry belt. Last episode, just forget it. Couldn't get it done. But now we killed it until you made me do it again. Thanks, Corey.
No problem.
When you use Native, you will smell amazing all day long thanks to their long-lasting scents. Want to smell spicy and woodsy, sweet, or clean and fresh? Native has a scent option for everyone. So now's the time to make the switch from antiperspirant to Native. When you visit their site, you can discover all their fresh scents and maybe even try out one of their body washes while you're at it. So right now, go to nativedeo.com/fatman or use the promo code FATMAN at checkout to get a sweet 20% off your first order. That's nativedeo.com/fatman or use the promo code FATMAN at checkout for 20% off your first order. Thank you to the good folks at Native for sponsoring this episode of the podcast.
That's great. I'm going to do it. You did it. You did it.
I told you. Fantastic. Excellent. We got one, Native guys. We did it.
You did it.
Last of Us. Last of Us. We are not good folks, viewers at home, going to spoil too much of it. Again, it's been a minute, like you had since last Friday. It's a few days. We're also not going to do Q&A today because all of us middle-aged men are going to go off and do Valentine's Day.
Yes,
with the people who have, for some reason, chosen to love us.
Don't ask me why.
Yeah, it's a mystery, the great mystery of life. Are you a gamer?
I am, but I did not play The Last of Us. One of my sons did. He played it and is watching this show as well. So I get clued in on, oh, that's a cutscene or that's gameplay. And I didn't expect to see one of those in when they do it on television. That didn't make any sense in the game. Now it's on the screen.
How are you feeling about the show in total, now that we're more than halfway through it?
I'm loving the show. I think, Pedro Pascal is the farrier of children, evidently. That's his job as an actor. He takes children from one place to another. Indeed. That's who he is. And it's either going to be like Dune or Cannonball Run, but he's going to be there taking care of the wee ones and getting them to where they need to be. And he's amazing at it. He's really, really sort of the stoicness, but the emotion behind his eyes that you can see is incredible. And the last couple of episodes, you see what you're seeing now is with Joel sort of ramping up his emotional height thing and Ellie's sort of lowering hers. Mm-hmm. Is very, very interesting, and I want to see where they meet in the middle of this, and I guess we won't see that until the very end.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story of a guy who does not want to be a father again, who finds himself in this position, and a young woman who has never had a father, who doesn't really know how to react to it. And so as he warms to her, and the end of 104, I mean, most of the fourth episode, felt a bit, action adventure, right? Felt like post-apocalyptic drama, where here we are rolling into Kansas City. That's, walled off. There's fucking thugs and gangs and armed guys and waiting to prey on the weak. And like, can we survive in this town that's just run by, Melanie Linsky, who's like the worst Karen that ever Karen.
Wow, wow, super Karen. Wow, super duper. Like such a wow. She was the most like I've seen her in other things. Is like, oh, she's sweet and she's pleasant, but wow, she's menacing and scary as hell
Oh hell
in
yeah!
this.
I mean, I worked with her on Castle Rock, and she's a lovely person. But
I can only imagine.
there is a deep well that she can draw from, and like when she puts it on, when she decides she wants to be scary, it's
Right,
still in the guise of what looks like, you know, she's a PTA mom. You know, she
right,
feels kind of like, she'd be a lovely person to have coffee with, unless you fucked with her, in which case she will shoot you in the face.
right. And then cut your balls off and keep them in her pocket.
Absolutely. Um, the thing that these two episodes, this sort of paired couple, is Joel and Ellie, specifically Joel, encountering another pair bonded couple of people who
Mm,
have found or have built or inherited the kind of love he's never had.
mm,
First it was Frank and Bill, who he
right,
encounters, who had the world's most perfect love, even when it was shitty, even when they had their bad days, they were meant for each other. They were each other's purpose. Joel's purpose, died in his arms, 22 years ago or whatever that was.
mm,
Um, and so in episode 3, he encounters that deep, like committed love. And here he encounters, with Henry and Sam,
mm,
another kind of pair bonded love story of
right,
here's this older brother caring for his younger brother, but for all intents and purposes, it is a father and son. The age gap is enough that you
right,
could potentially buy that. And they are perfectly bonded together. They desperately need each other.
mm,
They do not exist or could not function without each other. And here comes Joel, who's just figuring out how to fucking laugh again after
right,
20 years of being in the boneyards,
right.
you know. And once again, again, we're not gonna like deep spoil, but spoil a little bit. Catastrophe befalls this couple.
You knew something bad was going to happen.
Mm.
You were assured that anybody that Ellie and Joel come in contact with are going to are going to have problems that they couldn't surmount.
Yeah.
But every time it's such a heartbreaking place to be. It's just wow. How do you drag my heart through the mud yet again within 2 episodes of the last time you did it for a good thing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like I was getting. It's like I can't be too happy. It can't be so happy. This can't be too that good. It can't be that good. And of course, this isn't that good. An episode and a half later, it turns to shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
It turns to shit. And we've talked a bit before on this podcast about the game was some 20-25 hours long, that
Right.
experience. And so, and the Frank and Bill story was drastically different in the game. Like there was no
Yeah.
tragedy
Absolutely.
there,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Henry and Sam, it also hits hard in the game. The characters are slightly different. In the game, Sam is not deaf. He just
Wow.
straight up talks, and the desire in listening to Craig Mason on the official podcast talking about how do I differentiate this kid from Ellie? Like they're about
Mm-hmm.
the same age, they would have the same kind of pitter patter, the same youthful
Mm,
resistance to authority. I just didn't want to have the same two kids talking to each other and to everybody else. And so his
mm.
solution was like, all right, well, what if he can't talk? What if the tenor of those conversations are incredibly different by virtue of the fact that they have to be, you know?
Right.
And they cast a young deaf actor,
Mm.
who's fantastic.
Amazing.
So
Absolutely
great.
amazing. I mean, both of them, both actors, Henry and Sam, were really. You could see the pathos
Mm-hmm.
in both of them, and like the worry that Henry had for Sam, and by contrast, this worry that Sam had for Henry,
Yeah.
was always there and just so beautiful, so fucking beautiful.
Yeah, and because in the game, it takes the span of the game is so long, those things are not back to back. Like you're
Right.
living with the game and in the world for longer than you are in the
Mm,
show. And so the show is going to have to, like, these big things will happen every episode. We're going to find ways to break hearts every
right.
episode.
Yeah. It's like the whole idea that this was sort of like some lighthearted video game is completely squashed by the show.
Yeah.
It's like this isn't, and it sort of gives gamers, good, bad, or indifferent, a it makes you think of them very differently now. It's like you're dealing with real life stories in this game, so maybe you are equipped for the real world. you
Yeah. I
know,
mean, it's a game as it is a show that's
right,
about love and all of the ways that love affects people. And
right.
sometimes those ways are not great.
Mm,
Sometimes those ways are painful. Sometimes they destroy you.
right,
Sometimes they drive you to do things you would never ordinarily do because you love a thing or a place or a
right.
way of life or a status or whatever that is.
Mm,
And so, what are the things that at the end of the day Joel will do for love, and how wonderful and awful are those going to be?
mm,
And it's profound in that way. The game is a profound experience, and so far the show is proving to be similarly so.
absolutely, absolutely. And you could see at the end of these episodes, at the end of this whole series, this one season, it you will never feel the same. Like you'll be changed by the show. That's what I've seen very much. So for those who like actually watch the show, they are changed by the show. That maybe the game didn't really change you and really didn't do it because it was a game and you could turn it off and you could do that. But the conversation that everyone is having about the show is that they are ultimately changed by the idea of what love can do for you, good, bad, and indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
That this whole series is going to change is changing the conversation about the world we live in to a large degree, I think. And
Yeah.
for those who are in fact watching it and those who are watching it intently will see that it will change the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this show is to video games what Watchmen, the show,
Mm,
was to comic books, in that
mm,
it's taking from the source material and both being faithful to it and drastically reinterpreting it, and then
absolutely.
finding a new thing to say about it than the original story was.
Mm,
Um, in ways that come through reinvention and come through just iteration and come through the change in mediums. But I think it's fascinating that some of the most deeply human storytelling is coming as adaptation from sources that aren't usually traditionally referred to as deeply human.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the whole idea of dealing with your humanity and what has humanity done to you and what have you done to humanity is on display right there on that in that show. That's about a game.
Yeah.
That's about a game that you play late at night till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. I've done it. I've been that guy. I've been that guy. All right, before we let you go and before we wrap up for this day, we wanted to talk a little bit about a seminal artist who passed away just a couple days ago,
Right.
who I had referenced in the open as part of my holy trinity of artists who helped me discover who I was and who I was going to be. But Trugoy the Dove, plug
Mm,
two, David Jolicoeur from De La Soul, passed away at age 54.
mm,
The cause of death has not been revealed yet, but far, far too young. Um,
true.
Tragedy in the way that all young deaths are tragedies. But there was something a little bit more. I'm not even going to call it bittersweet, but De La was on the verge of recapturing their masters, their rights to their own music, and you
They
had
had their
not been
music back.
able. They had their music back. Like you hadn't been able to stream, you hadn't been able to it was impossible to do so because of, law, record company shenanigans. And they got
Right.
it back. And March, they were about to, release it back into the world again. They were going to go on tour again.
Yep.
All of the financial windfalls that could be theirs was on in the offing. Um,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
and I remember there was this conversation, a smaller one. Us old heads always knew how great they were. But when three is the magic number ended up in the closing credits to Spider-Man No Way Home,
Right.
and you're like, oh, this bangs. Where's the rest of my De La Soul? All of
Where's
this
where's
shit is great.
where? Let me dust off my cassette player and my cassettes and go find 3 Feet High and Rising and play that shit again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so to watch an audience, a mass audience, kind of rediscover just how wonderful that music was, how joyful it was, how effervescent it was, how, and one of their issues were that they sampled so fucking heavily, but so mystically that clearing
Right.
any of these samples, and like
Never clearing anything.
there's 1,000 samples in this song. How do we pay for all of this shit?
Right.
But it's such gorgeous music, and I don't know what happens to De La Soul at this point. I don't know if they become the way the Beasties did and just said, you know what,
Right.
with the three of us, and without that third member, we are not the Beastie Boys. And so
Right.
whether or not Mace the Dove and Paz de News decide they want to continue, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, it was very sad news to encounter over the weekend.
Absolutely.
But you guys were contemporaries. You guys,
We were. Yeah, I was telling you earlier, like their first show in New York was opening for us at the Ritz in New York City. Like based on that first record coming out and really sort of blowing up in New York. And we were on, and we wanted to give them as much shine as they possibly could. And they were really, really good guys. I hung out with Dave a lot. And they're good people. They were just good people. And they're all really good people. And I'm hoping that this doesn't diminish or the efforts they did to get this record out, because they spent a great deal of time. They had put out a GoFundMe and trying to get enough money so they can get their masters back. That this will not deter people going out and getting this record. I hope that it makes the money that they wanted to make. I hope that it gives them the recognition that they deserve at some point. And unfortunately, it's tragic, but it might help. You never know.
You never know. But yeah, like I hope it is not the end of the Daisy Age.
Yes.
Because the inner sound, y'all, it deserves to be heard.
Right.
And so yeah, just pouring one out for Trugoy the Dove.
Absolutely.
Who helped to change my life in good ways. And I don't think I'm alone. The music was extraordinary.
Absolutely.
So, and at the very least, we have that.
Yes.
At the very least, we have.
Yeah.
That. This has been a wonderful fucking hour and a half of Black Man Beyond. We've traversed the globe. We went to Japan and Buenos Aires and north to Canada to talk about nerd shit and hockey. We then backed around to movie trailers and delicious smelling soaps. Thank you, Native. And then ended.
Let's try that body wash.
Oh, dude, they got one that makes you smell like vanilla cookies.
Oh, see, I can't do that. That get hungry. It's trying not to be a fat guy. That's all.
But sometimes you just gotta tempt yourself just a little bit. I smell delicious today.
I smell delicious. What is that delicious smell? Oh, that's me.
Welcome aboard, everybody. Corey, thank you so much for breaking off some time on your Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
To just fucking nerd out with me, man.
No problem. I wouldn't have it any other way. This is what I wanted to do for a very long time, and hang out with you. And like I said, I was saying to JC, I'm coming to LA beginning of next month, and I'd love to come see the bar. Maybe we can go hang out there, do something,
Oh,
have a
for
drink.
sure.
And I hear the tater tots are good. I don't know what it is. I just want,
We
I
will
just want to.
we'll have a night at Scum and Villainy, and we'll set the place on fire.
Hey, there we go.
Metaphorically, JC. Metaphorically, we will not actually set your place on
The
fire.
insurance is paid for, though, right, JC?
I mean, might not be the worst idea.
I mean, fire can be fixed, but never mind.
It's cleansing.
It's fire is cleansing.
Where can the people find you on the internet? What do you got coming up? What do you want to toss to?
You can find me on Instagram. Just look up my name. I'm out there. I'm on Twitter, but I don't post anything on Twitter ever. Not even before that was bullshit. I never did because I don't understand Twitter. I don't get it. And yeah, mostly I'm on Instagram, and there's a Living Color page on Instagram. There's a Living Color website you can go to that you can get our gear, you can get records and all kinds of stuff. Just come check us out. We are around.
Outstanding. Corey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank Mark, man. It's my pleasure, and I'd love to do this again. And like I said, when I get out there in like 2 weeks, I'm gonna hang out.
Excellent. Hit me up.
All right.
We'll do it right.
You got it.
And this has been another episode of Black Man Beyond. My name is Marc Bernardin, and we will see you same black time, same black channel, smodcast.com or youtube.com/Kevin Smith. Be good, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Listen to the inner sound, y'all.
That's right. Peace.
Peace.
This is the cat. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the AKA Ask Kev Anything.
Every saga has a 10-year anniversary, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what happens when Jay and Silent Bob get old. I'm Kevin Smith. Cheers,